So, almost 24 hours we have got without the Fever's new signing attacking Fever fans.
And Fever just signed, if you drew up a political activist and created one in a lab.
The Indiana Fever thought they were building a winning team, setting themselves up for WNBA Dom with Caitlin Clark at the helm. They had a solid plan, a great supporting cast, and a fan base more excited than ever. But then out of nowhere, they made a move that no one saw coming, signing Brianna Turner, a player who within 24 hours went from a new addition to a public relations disaster.
To have your team signed that could bring in and torch your locker room. I mean, literally come in, light it on fire, and burn the entire locker room down, and immediately raise the antennas of anybody in the fan base that's actually paying attention. And it makes you wonder, are we in a situation now with the Indiana Fever? Does their front office understand exactly what their new fan base is? And by new fan base, I mean actually.
Fever fans didn't even get a chance to celebrate her arrival before social media went into a frenzy. Why? Because Brianna Turner had a history of taking subtle shots at Clark, and her supporters' fans immediately began digging up her past tweets. And what they found wasn't just one bad take. It was a pattern. One tweet in particular set the internet on fire back when Iowa celebrated their historic season despite finishing. As a runner-up in the NCAA tournament, Turner tweeted, "Iowa will hold a celebration to honor the NCAA runner-up. All players and coaches expected respectfully. I'm confused. Is this what a runner-up typically does?" At first glance, it might seem like just a simple question, but fans knew better. This wasn't just about Iowa. It was a direct shot at Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeye fans who supported her, the same Caitlin Clark who had just revolutionized women's college basketball, the same Caitlin Clark who carried her team to the finals with record-breaking performances. I
mean, look, they just inherited like three times or four times larger fan base than they ever had before. Who do you think we are exactly? I'm just wondering because I think this team's going to be a lot better. I know Stephanie White's trying to build defense. I get it. Find it somewhere else. I'm just going to keep it.
Indiana Fever fans immediately took offense. This wasn't just a random player making a comment about college sports. This was now a member of their team openly mocking the star they had rallied behind, with a bad look, one that Turner seemed completely unprepared for. And by
the way, she's already shown she is going to let what people say on Twitter.
At this point, you'd think Turner would realize a mistake, maybe backtrack, maybe say, "Hey, I didn't mean it like that," maybe even issue a simple apology. But nope, that's not what happened. Instead, when fans called her out, she doubled down. She responded, "Feel free to unfollow me or block me if that is bothersome to you." That was it. That was her response. No clarification, no apology, no attempt to connect with the Fever fan base, just a blatant dismissal of the very people who were supposed to support her. And that's when everything spiraled out of control. The Indiana Fever front office probably didn't expect this level of backlash when they signed Turner on paper. She was supposed to be a defensive asset, a veteran presence, someone who could help Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston lead this team into the future. But within less than a day, she had turned the entire fan base against her, and once that happens, there's almost no coming back from it. Social media erupted. Fever fans were furious. People were demanding she be cut from the team immediately, saying there was no place for someone like her in Indiana. One fan tweeted, "We were excited about defense. Now we're defending Caitlin Clark from our own player." Another added, "She just got here, and she's already telling us to get lost. Nah, cut her now." And this wasn't just a few angry fans. This was an overwhelming reaction. Turner had successfully alienated the same people who were supposed to support her. And the worst part, she didn't even seem to care. Now, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture here, because this isn't just about one tweet. This is about the ongoing divide in the WNBA, a divide that Caitlin Clark never asked for, but somehow keeps finding herself at the center of. From the moment Clark stepped into the league, she's been treated differently, not just by the media, but by other players. Some of them, like Angel Reese and Chin Carter, have openly gone after her on the court. Others, like Brianna Turner, have taken their shots online. The pattern is obvious. There's a group of WNBA players who resent the attention that Clark gets, and instead of embracing what she brings to the game, they've chosen to push back against it now. Let's be clear, Caitlin Clark is not the first great player to enter the WNBA, but she is the first to bring this level of national attention. She's the first player in years to get casual fans invested. She's the reason why games are selling out and why TV ratings have skyrocketed, and yet some players still see her as a threat instead of an opportunity. Turner's tweet wasn't just about Iowa. It was about everything. Caitlin Clark represents the changing landscape of women's basketball. The fact that for the first time ever a rookie is the face of the league, that's what Turner was really pushing back against. And it backfired spectacularly. The Indiana Fever organization is now in a tough spot. They thought they were making a smart basketball move, but instead they've created a PR disaster. The fans are against Turner, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So now the question is, what does Indiana do next? Do they try to smooth things over, convince Turner to back off, and hope the fans move on? Or do they cut their losses now before this becomes an even bigger distraction? Because here's the thing, this isn't just about Turner anymore. This is about the culture of the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark is their franchise player. She's a reason they're relevant again. Every move they make needs to be in her best interest, because without her, this team is just another struggling WNBA franchise. So does keeping Turner really make sense? She's not a superstar. She's not an essential piece. She's a defensive role player who just made herself more trouble than she's worth. And if the Fever truly want to build a championship culture, they need to start making decisions like a team that's serious about winning, keeping a player who's alienated the fan base and disrespected the franchise star. That's not a winning move. That's a mistake. At the end of the day, this is Caitlin Clark's team. And if Turner can't get with the program, then she doesn't need to be there. And if the Fever front office is smart, they'll realize that sooner rather than later. Because one thing is clear, the Indiana Fever fans aren't going to forgive this. And if Turner stays on the roster, this controversy isn't going away anytime soon. Brianna Turner's tweet debacle wasn't just another WNBA at Twitter moment. It became a defining controversy for the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark and the league itself. The backlash wasn't just from fans. It sparked discussions across sports media, basketball forums, and even among players. At first, the Fever stayed silent, possibly hoping this would blow over. But with every passing hour, it became clear this wasn't going away. The longer they waited, the worse it got. Fans were relentless, demanding answers. Would the Fever address it? Would Turner apologize? Would the front office act before this became an even bigger disaster? But instead of taking control, Indiana let the situation spiral. A locker room on edge. This wasn't just a social media battle. It had real-world consequences. The Fever weren't just dealing with fan outrage. They had a locker room to manage. Caitlin Clark had barely settled into her new role, and now she was dealing with a teammate who had already made it clear where she stood. Think about how awkward is that you walk into the gym ready to build chemistry, ready to work toward winning, and there's someone across from you who's already mocked your success. The unspoken tension in that room had to be palpable, and the Fever coaching staff knew it. They worked hard to create a positive environment, one where players felt respected, motivated, and focused on winning. Caitlin Clark was the key to that culture shift. The last thing the team needed was a distraction, especially one that came from within. And this wasn't just about Caitlin Clark versus Brianna Turner. This was about the message it sent to the entire team. With the Fever allow a player to take public shots at their franchise star with zero consequences? Would they allow disrespect to fester in the locker room? Would they let Turner divide the fan base at a time when Indiana was on the rise? If you're a rookie or a veteran watching this unfold, you're asking yourself, what kind of organization is this? And that's where leadership is tested. Great organizations nip these issues in the bud before they become problems. The Fever, they hesitated, and that hesitation created doubt. Caitlin Clark's role in all this. Let's make one thing clear. Caitlin Clark didn't ask for any of this drama. She's not the type to engage in Twitter feuds. She's not called for Turner's head. She's focused on basketball. But that doesn't mean she's blind. She knows the situation. She knows that the WNBA is filled with players who resent her. She knows that Turner's tweet was just another example of a larger issue. And while Clark is known for being mentally tough, let's be real, this isn't fair to her. She should be spending this time preparing for her first full season, getting in sync with her teammates, and building toward a championship. Instead, she's stuck in the middle of a controversy she never created. And the worst part, it's not the first time this has happened. From Angel Reese's taunts to the Chine Carter incident, Clark has been the target of unnecessary hostility since the moment she stepped onto a WNBA court. And yet, despite all of it, she's never lashed out. She's never clapped back. She's handled it like a professional, and that's exactly why fans are rallying behind her. They see what's happening. They see how she's constantly under attack, And they're not going to let it slide anymore, which is why Turner's situation escalated so quickly. The Fever fan base isn't just angry, they're protective. They know what Clark means to this team. And they're not about to let someone tear her down before the season even starts. The Fever were at crossroads. They could cut Turner and send a message that they won't tolerate disrespect toward their star player, try to smooth things over, and hope fans move on, do nothing, and risk alienating their entire fan base. And let's be honest, there was only one right answer. Turner was not a vital piece of this team. She was brought in for depth, not as a franchise-altering player. Keeping her wasn't worth the trouble, but Indiana dragged their feet, and as they delayed their decision, Turner made things worse. Turner's response, the final nail in the coffin. Instead of acknowledging the backlash and showing even a little humility, Turner doubled down. She posted, "I will not bend the knee or change my online advocacy efforts to appease others." Translation, I don't care what the fans think. That was the moment fans gave up on her completely. Not only did she refuse to own up to her words, but she made it clear she wasn't here to win them over. And that's when the real pressure hit the Fever front office. They weren't just dealing with fan outrage anymore. They were now dealing with a PR disaster, because at the end of the day, this wasn't just about Turner. It was about the entire Indiana Fever brand. The Fever had no choice. They had to distance themselves from Turner. And once that decision was made, it was only a matter of time. They had seen the writing on the wall. Turner had gone from a new signing to a public enemy in less than 24 hours. She had managed to alienate the fan base, create tension in the locker room, and embarrass the franchise before even playing a game. It was a disaster from every angle, and at that point there was no saving it. So what happens next? Turner will likely be released, and the Fever will move on. Without her, the real question is, will this be the last time a player tries to take shots at Caitlin Clark? Because if there's one thing we've learned, it's that Clark isn't going anywhere. She's here to stay, and the WNBA needs to start embracing that instead of fighting it. The league has a golden opportunity. Caitlin Clark, she's bringing in new fans, record viewership, and mainstream attention that the WNBA has never seen before. Yet time and time again, players like Turner, Rhea, and Carter have tried to push back against it. But here's the truth. It's not working. Fans are not turning against Clark. If anything, they're becoming even more loyal. And every time a player tries to take her down, it only makes her story more compelling. The Fever need to learn from this. They need to build around Clark, protect her, and create a culture that supports her success, because she's not just a great player, she's the future of this franchise. And if they make the right move, she could be the face of the entire WNBA. But they need to be smarter than this. No more distractions, no more unnecessary drama. It's time to focus on basketball. And with Turner on her way out, the Fever can finally get back to what matters most. Winning of this entire saga was avoidable. Turner could have kept her opinions to herself. She could have focused on basketball. Instead, she chose Twitter battles over team chemistry. And now she's paying the price. But in the end, this isn't about Turner. This is about Caitlin Clark, the Fever, and the WNBA's future. And if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that Clark is built for this. The league better get used to it. Fever fans didn't even get a chance to celebrate her arrival before social media went into a frenzy. Why? Because Brianna Turner had a history of taking subtle shots at Clark, and her supporters, fans, immediately began digging up her past tweets. And what they found wasn't just one bad take. It was a pattern. One tweet in particular set the internet on fire back when Iowa celebrated their historic season despite finishing as a runner-up in the NCAA tournament. Turner tweeted, "Iowa will hold a celebration to honor the NCAA runner-up. All players and coaches expected respectfully." I'm confused. Is this what a runner-up typically does? At first glance, it might seem like just a simple question, but fans knew better. This wasn't just about Iowa. It was a direct shot at Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeye fans who supported her. The same Caitlin Clark who had just revolutionized women's college basketball. The same Caitlin Clark who carried her team to the finals with record-breaking performances.